Okay. So let's talk about painting on glass. Okay. Painting on glass, first of all. I saw some questions actually that popped up on the One Stroke Facebook group today or a couple days ago, I'm not sure, but it was recently. And the question was about cleaning. Okay, so if you're painting on any kind of smooth surface that is glass, metal, ceramic, anything that's got a smooth or a glaze on it like ceramic, you're going to want to clean it to remove any surface dirt and oils. Specifically, the oils is what we're trying to get rid of. When you manufacture things, machine oil, things like that get on the glassware. So you want to make sure that you clean it well. What you use to clean it with can be any number of things, right? The manufactured bottle says to use alcohol, and because the alcohol will cut through the grease. So you can use rubbing alcohol with a soft cloth. You can use glass cleaner. Glass cleaner will cut grease. Vinegar and water will cut through grease, okay? Soap and water, like a Dawn, has a grease cutter on it. So anything that you're going to be able to get as much of the surface dirt and oil off of that surface so that it will allow for the paint to adhere as much as possible, okay? That'll make it last longer. It'll prevent the paint from chipping and peeling off. And then once you clean it, try not to touch the surface that you're going to paint on. So I have a couple of tips for that, okay? Especially when I'm painting a large number, like if I'm getting ready for a show and I paint like a whole dozen glasses, then I will clean them all, and then I will put on the nitrile or latex gloves, okay? And what that does is it allows me to touch glass to glass, not worry about touching anything else. You know, I can touch any of the glass and it won't get my skin oils on, or fingerprints or anything like that on the glass, okay? So clean, right? Can't reuse them. But the nitrile gloves are really nice because as long as you don't like touch your body with them or anything, then you're not going to leave any oils on the glass. And it does a couple other things too. If you tend to be a messy painter, it will also keep you from getting your nails and things from getting dirty too. Okay, so I'm going to actually put these on right now. And we're going to get overhead so I can do our demonstration. And then I will talk to you more about this glass. So there we go. Okay, so this is a square glass plate, see-through, obviously, clear glass plate. And I have already cleaned this. Now, another tip that I want to share with you is that you can get the alcohol, right, from your local drugstore in large containers or whatever, the rubbing alcohol, 75% on up, I think, is the norm. But what I like to do, because then you would get it on a paper towel or something and then clean your glass with it. But what I like to do is, let me turn this, well no, I'm going to paint on this side. So I put it in a little squirt bottle, okay? And then all I have to do is, let me get a paper towel so I'm ready, is just spritz the glass with the alcohol. That helps me make sure I get it everywhere that I want it to be. Okay, and then I wipe it off really well. Okay, so I very lightly powder my hands and still avoid touching the glass. Yeah, I don't know if powder's a good idea. Yes, definitely avoid touching the glass after you powder them. Yeah, because you don't want to get any of that on there either. This paint will have an issue with powder, so not so sure I would recommend that, but if it works for you, Kim, that's good to know. Okay, so what I'm going to share with you, I printed out a picture of a bunch of different holiday berries. Okay, so here we have juniper berries. These are rose hips. Now these are a small version of rose hips. The rose hip is the part that's left behind after all the petals fall off of a rose. Okay, they have medicinal properties and lots of others. And then there are different sizes, and they may be bigger, then you've got maybe fewer of them on branches. Sometimes they're elongated, kind of egg-shaped or whatever, but I'm going to use these for my example tonight. And then this is what's called a winterberry. They kind of grow on clusters on stems of or branches of a shrub. And then of course we have our traditional holly, which is very similar to the winterberry, just that we have those beautiful holly leaves that go with it. And then finally I've got some mistletoe, okay, which is very easy to recognize. Mistletoe, they have white berries and long curve-shaped leaves. And did you know that the mistletoe is a parasite? And we have them in the trees down here. They grow all over the trees and they choke out the trees if you get too many of them. So you have to be careful with that. Okay, so I'm going to put out my paints here. I'm going to put out some, I'm using enamel paints tonight, and you can use enamel paints, you can use multi-surface acrylic paints, whatever you prefer. The enamel paint, I feel, is a stronger adhesion, and it also has a gloss that it dries to, whereas our multi-surface paint tends to be a more of a satin finish. It's not matte, but it's satin, and I don't like it on glass personally. That's just me. I like the shine to go with the shine of the glass, so I like the way the enamel looks. All right, this is yellow citron, and I just put out thicket right there. All right, and I'm going to put out just a little bit of wicker white right here. Okay, we got a little bit of a crusty there. All right, so I'm going to flatten that out, and I'm going to get, now when you're painting on glass, the best thing is to use brushes made for glass. Now, unfortunately, Plaid no longer makes Donna's one-stroke glass painting brushes. However, if you look for a brush made by Plaid that has white bristles, I thought I had some, but I don't. These are the glass painting brushes. But there is I believe it's a black handle, and they have white bristles, and so the white bristles are going to be your softer bristles. The softest bristles you can get, the better. We're not applying as much pressure as we do with our regular one-stroke brushes, and so what you want to do is kind of lay the paint on, and I'm going to try and demonstrate that. Yes, the enamel is water-based. It's an enamel acrylic paint made by Plaid, okay? So it'll say right here, gloss acrylic paint, enamel, and it is water-based, and it will have the same non-toxicity information on it as well, okay? Okay, so I'm going to come between my two greens right here. I've got yellow citron and thicket. What I would really, they make a green forest, which is a brighter green in the enamels. Never really been a fan of the green forest, but I like sap green, which is, I guess green forest is as close as you're going to get to sap green. So but I go with the thicket in the enamels, and it works fine. Okay, so I've got plenty of paint on my brush. I'm going to come get just a little bit of white over and come over here and work that in. The yellow citron, as in its name has the word yellow, is a little bit transparent. So a little touch of white on that yellow citron is going to help it to be less transparent. Okay, let me pull this out. There we go. And then if you really want a nice bead of white on your stroke, you can also come right next to this white and side stroke some white, okay? All right, so let me set this over here. I always feel like I need just a little bit more when it comes to enamels. Okay, so we're going to do a wreath tonight, and I'm going to start off just getting my wreath base. So I'm going to use a chisel edge stroke, okay? Let me come down. It's most important that you see the stroke so much more than the load here. Okay, so chisel edge stroke. I'm going to go around, and this is a square plate, so we're going to do a square wreath. All right, and just a few. It's not going to be a real thick. And it's going to be one of like those watercolor ones like you see on some of the art pages, where they're just a thin little wreath, maybe a few vines and some berries, because I just want to show, or leaves, excuse me, because I just want to show you how, oh my goodness. I have gray underneath my plate, so that should be fine, but why did it go so blurry on me all of a sudden? One second, guys. Yeah, I think it's the glare. Oh, I know what it is. My fan is going. No, it's freaking out the autofocus. Oh, wrong light. Turn that off. Okay, so there we go. Now the gray is actually good for showing true colors, so I don't want to put another color under there. White always fritzes out my cameras. All right, so chisel edge, you're just dragging those last bristles behind, just putting a nice little vine around the lip edge of this plate. Okay. And I'm going to have a few of these kind of come into the center. We'll have some of those winter berries or rose hips kind of hanging off. And rose hips don't have any leaves because all the leaves have typically fallen off for the winter. The thing about glass painting too, so if you're up on your chisel, you do need quite a bit of paint on the brush. And you want to give it a little bit of a lean. This is a Libby glass square plate, but yes, you can get these at Dollar Tree also. Let's see if zooming out helps that a little bit. There we go. All right, so just a few little branches in here and there. Okay, so first thing I want to show you, we're going to get some of the leaves that go on with these different types of berries, right? So the first one I'm going to show is the holly leaf. Okay, and so there's a couple different ways you can do a holly leaf. I'm going to start with one here. Okay, I really want to come down close to that, and then I'm hoping that it will allow me to stay here. All right, so you don't want to push too hard, but you want to lay the paint down. You're going to go out to a point, and I'm swinging that outside edge around as I come to the tip. Okay, now I don't have enough paint on my brush, and that's why it looks so thin. So more paint, and we're laying the paint on, so very little pressure. You want to kind of have your brush laid about 45-degree angle to the glass. Okay, then I'm going to come and turn it. All right, and we're going to come right in here. There we go. All right, so you're just coming up to points each time and then standing to the chisel to get the tip. Okay, and then you're going to come from the vine into the center of the leaf and tip your front edge forward, just trailing those last few bristles behind. Now when you do that, you tend to pick up some of the paint, the dark paint, and I don't want that blending with my other paint getting mud, so I just wipe it off on paper towel. Okay, so let's do another one right here. Hi, Cindy Walsh. Okay, now I'm going to side stroke just a little bit of white. So I really want that to show up a little better. All right, so a little bit of white. There we go. So tip, 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 and stand. It's the easiest way to do holly leaves, okay? And then here, tip, point, point, and stand. Now, if you are a perfectionist and you want to have absolutely no transparency in your glass painting, then you're going to have to go over those a second time if you don't have enough paint on your brush to make them opaque enough, okay? That's another common question. Do I have to stroke over them multiple times? No, you do not have to. But if you have a concern, if you don't like that this paint can be a little bit of transparent when you're stroking on glass, then yeah, you will have to do. And that's not easy to do because you have to try and hit all the stroke parts the same. I'm going to do a little slider right here. So I'm going to touch, a little bit of pressure, stand up, and slide. Okay. Pull the stem in there. And there we go. So we have the leaves for the holly all set to go. All right. Now, when it comes to juniper berries, they are on a bush that has like little needles on it. See, look like that. So that's a little tricky to stroke, and you don't have to necessarily make those to have the berries look pretty, but I'm just going to show you real quick what I would do. Okay, so if I wanted to have some of those needles showing here, I've got my double load here. I'm going to touch on the chisel and make just a little short pull, no pressure. Chisel, chisel, just little chisel touches. Okay, so you touch, lift. I'm stroking with a slight movement back to the branch, and I'm layering. Now, if I want to have a little bit lighter, I grab a little bit of white. See that? The other thing I can do is reverse my brush, and you can have some of them with the dark out, right in there. And then reverse it again and overlap with some of the light, and that'll give you a nice little contrast between the two colors. Okay, so a few more of those. They almost look like evergreen, and they are juniper is an evergreen. But they really grow in heavy clusters like that. Okay, so they're kind of fun to do. Just little touches. Reverse the brush and get some dark ones in there. And there we go. All right, so that's a fun little branch. So no matter what you paint on glass, there is only light pressure. Nothing is heavy pressure. That's absolutely correct. You don't want to push so hard, and I will show you real quick what happens when you do. So if I was going to do a leaf right here and I'm applying just a ton of pressure like we would do if we were stroking one stroke on canvas, right? And that's my leaf. And you can kind of see it's pretty transparent. If I put my hand behind there, you're going to see all those lines from the brush. Even though it's a fine haired brush, you're still going to see those. And so I try to tell you as much as possible, you want to lay the brush at like a 45-degree angle, and then you can do little segments of that wiggle and pick it up and then stand it up. Okay, so just think about that as an option. If you're finding that you're pushing just way too hard, you can lay the brush down and then you just stand up when you get to the bottom. All right, they don't look as great, but I feel like they're good enough. Okay, so let me just, another nice thing about painting on glass is you can very easily wipe off what you don't like. See that? And start over. Okay, so I have my juniper leaves or needles. I have my holly leaves. Now I'm going to share with you some of the, what would be a mistletoe leaf. Okay, so I'm going to get a different color green. Let's come out just a little bit so you can see what we have so far. Okay, so this is soft apple. Okay, and I'm going to get, this is a 10 flat. Okay, and I'm going to load this with all soft apple. I'm going to come over here and load just some thicket on one corner. And then I'm going to grab white on the other corner. Okay, so these are a little more pale. Ooh, too much. Push that back over. Okay, so a little bit of white, soft apple, and thicket. Okay, so this is what, yes, soft apple is a nice color. I was so glad to find out they didn't discontinue it like they said they were going to. Okay, so when you're doing a mistletoe leaf, they're two-sided. So look at this picture right here. Okay, so they're two and they come together at the joint right here, and then that comes back up to the main stem. All right. And you know what, I think I'm going to add, if you look at the color of those, I'm going to add just a little bit of the citrus green into the soft apple, okay? Because it is just a little bit yellowish with that green. Okay, so right here you're going to push down, light pressure, stand up to the tip, okay? And then opposite that, let me turn it this way. You're going to push down. And by push down, I mean lay the brush down. You don't want to push like we just talked about, right? Okay. And then you're going to touch from here and pull it back to the stem. Thank you, Lucy. So push, lay it down, stand it up. Lay it down, stand it up. All right, let me stroke that one over again. You can restroke on glass as long as you do it right away. Okay, and then we're going to pull this back. Okay, one more pair. Let's put this one right here. And then, so what I'm going to do with this next one, if I can pull this off, is, let me get a little bit more of my paint on here. I'm going to try and flip it. So here, and then roll it over and stand it up. Okay, and if your roll doesn't do exactly what you want, you can come right back to it. There we go. Okay, so it's a little bit of a rolled leaf right there. All right, so that takes care of all the represented leaves that we would have that go with these berries. Now, just real quick, could you do a leaf with a round brush? Yes, you could. But they don't make round brushes in these soft bristled sets that I know of. So you'd have to be very careful with the stiffer bristle brushes, okay? All right, I'm gonna pick up some white and I'm just gonna do a little bit of an evergreen bough right in here. See that? So this is like a U, E, W, E, I think they're spelled. So a little bit heavier pressure. And I like to have a variety when it comes to a wreath. Thank you. This way what we'll do is we'll tuck in some of those winter berries in here, which is what I would recommend you do if you were working on a wreath. Right, we have little red berries that tuck in. There we go. All right, so let's come back out, and I think maybe my camera is behaving itself now. Okay, so let's come back to our mistletoe. I'm just going to add a set right here. There we go. Okay, now this plate, just so you know, this has raised sides, so you have to be kind of careful with the curves where they curve up, etc. So just think about that when you're creating something. Try not to put your strokes where you have to go right over the middle of one, but sometimes it just, you don't have a choice. Okay, all right, so I'm going to throw one more holly leaf right over here just to kind of balance this out. Notice I'm laying the brush at about a 45-degree angle as I'm stroking. My eye is watching the outside edge as I'm creating each one of those points, okay? You can't wear gloves, Lee? It took some practice for me to get comfortable painting with gloves on because they are kind of loose and you don't have, you don't feel like you have as good a brush control. However, it also made me kind of loosen up my grip. So if you tend to be a stiff painter, it really might help you. I think glass tends to intimidate people sometimes, and so they stiffen up with the stroke. Maybe. It's just a thought. Okay. So I'm just adding a few of these juniper needles in here. Oops. Just try to make sure you're pulling all of your strokes back to the vine so that you're not having stuff just kind of hang out there. So, all right, now we're ready to do our berries. Oh, gloves make your hands break out. These are nitrile, not latex. If you have a latex allergy, the nitrile gloves aren't supposed to, you can get non-latex out there. But that I understand if they make your hands get a rash. Okay, so I'm going to put out some orange. So that's pure orange. I'm going to put, and I'm putting just little bits, okay? I'm going to put out some berry wine. Your hands sweat. Yeah, my hands do sweat. They're sweaty in here. And this is lipstick red, which is the brighter red in the enamel line. This is some magenta, something different to try. I'm going to put that next to the lipstick red. I've got white out already. Oh, and the blues. Okay, so with the blues, what I'm choosing to use here is a cerulean blue, which is, I don't know if we have anything in, it's kind of like a peacock blue, a little bit darker than peacock blue in the multi-surface. And then I'm going to use this new metallic. This is a Cascade blue Cascade metallic. Okay, so see that metallic look there? You should try it again. I'm here to tell you. Okay, so let's start with our juniper berries first. So these are some sponge-ended daubers, right? This is a 1/4 inch dauber. This one's a lovingly used one, okay? So what I'm going to do is, when you create berries with the daubers, you want to load multiple colors on each sponge end. So I'm going to do half cerulean and half with this Cascade, or blue Cascade, okay? So that's giving me a really pretty combination of blues right there. Oh, that's so pretty. But I need a little highlight, okay? Now, I'm going to do a few without it, and then I'm going to add a little touch of white so you can see the difference, okay? So we're over here. This is where I had my juniper. Let's come back down. Okay, so these grow in clumps or clusters. So you're going to touch with the light color up and give it like a half or a 1/4 of a turn. So that tells me, so I have a little gap right there, that I don't have my whole sponge and loaded with paint. So I'm going to come back here and just make sure I'll give a little twist on my plate. That's better. There we go. Okay, so light color up. And now you can see they're very transparent. Boy, that blue is pretty. All right, so I'm going to get just a touch of white on that upper metallic blue. It's probably going to take away some of the metallic qualities, but I think it's going to help. So I got some white on there now. I'm going to come right in here. See how that is going to make that a little less transparent. Less pressure, you're going to get a smaller berry. Okay, so let's come down here and we'll come into where our green is. And we'll get just a little bit of white again. Little 1/4 turns. I love blue. And that is really pretty. Okay, so overlap and you get a nice little cluster. Try not to avoid touching other berries and things. You want to touch them so that they look more natural. Okay. And you can get smaller ones, bigger ones. This is where it starts to come out. Okay, and then I'm going to come over here where I have this other piece, and we'll add a few there. Now with the metallic, you might do fine on top of the green. Yep. Then it holds its opacity a little better. Oh goodness, that's so pretty. All right, just a couple more. Okay, so pretty little clusters of blueberries. Now I'm going to wipe off my little sponge end here on paper towel. Okay, got as much of that off as I could, and I'm going to come and get orange. Now, because I've got a little bit of that brown on there, or brown, blue, I gave it away. Because I got a little bit of that blue on there, it's going to tint the back half of that berry with that blue and make it look a little bit brown. So it's kind of what we want for the rose hips. I am going to come get just a touch of that lipstick red though, just to give me a little bit of a red tint to the bottom, okay? All right, so the rose hips are, remember, they don't have any leaves left on them, so I'm going to stick them in here between all these evergreens, right? So we're going to come right in here, and they're usually on the ends of stems. All right. Now again, if you want the oranges and reds are also opaque, or are also transparent. So if you put a little white with that orange, try not to get it in the red, then it'll help that orange stand out just a little. You just have to be careful. You don't want to make it overpowering. There we go. So isn't that pretty? So we can stick a few coming out of the greens here. And let me just do a couple more right where we have, let me get some red. There we go. Okay, so what I want to do to finish these off, I've got my script liner. I'm going to get that just damp, okay? We're not getting it inky. And I need a little bit of licorice that I'm going to put out on my plate. Just a tiny little dab. All right. And I'm going to get licorice on the tip of my script liner and on the outside, not all the way to the edge, just slightly in from the outside edge. You're going to put little black ends opposite where the stem is coming into the back, okay? This paint is still kind of wet, so it might be better if I'd have waited, but I don't have that time. So I don't know if you're seeing these or not. There we go. Okay, so that's the rose hips. Pretty simple to do. And right there, there, and there. Okay, now with that liner, again, we don't want to use water, so we can't get it inky, but I can come in with a little bit of the streak through the thicket, and we can get kind of creative with our branches here. There we go. Maybe a little bit of white. That's better. Okay, so just some fun little branches. Could see this on a set of Christmas glasses. Yes. Okay. Each glass could have its own set of berries, different colors. All right, so let me wipe off that sponge another time. Get more of that color off of there. And we're going to address our holly berries. So in this case, I'm going to get all red, and then I'm going to come get some berry wine on 1/2. Okay. Now these, you don't want to add the white into the sponge if you want a little bit of a lighter tip to them. You have to come in later after they've dried and do it that way. So these usually grow in clusters as well. Depending on the variety of holly you have, they might be little singulars or clusters. But we like them from a design perspective in groups of 3s or 5s. And they're usually right on the branch near the leaves. Okay. All right, so little bits of those. Let's put some out here. Okay, red is a transparent color too, so you have to be kind of generous with the paint and very lightly twist it. Okay, so I have a little holly over here, so I'm going to go ahead and put a little set of those berries right there. I want to do it so you can see it. There we go. Thank you, Denise. All right, so now we have all of those berries on. And then we just have the winter berries, which are a smaller cluster. So I actually have a smaller daughter. You can use a handle of a brush if you need to, but I happen to have a little 1/8 inch daughter here. So I'm just going to load that with just the red. And we're going to come in right in here, and they're all over the vine. Practice those holly leaves. Find a way, like I showed you, to do just simple moves to the tip, okay? And then you'll be happier with them. You don't have to necessarily make them perfect. And if you mess them up, or you feel like you have, you can come in with a liner and outline the edges of the leaves, and that will make them look better. So these are all clustered together. Okay. And then I'm going to do just a small tip of them right there. And one more right here. All right, now, you do want a little bit of depth, so I'm going to come in, I wiped off that red, and now I'm going to come in with some berry wine, and we're going to add, it's probably better to have done these first, but that's okay. Little bits of darker colored red berries. There we go. Okay, so you've got a little bit of variation in color there for some depth. All right, now to finish off, we're going to do our holly berries. Okay, so holly berries are white, but you don't want to just do white. I like to, so that you can have a little bit of shading with them. You can do white with a little bit of gray, or I like to do, or a little bit of yellow. I like to do white with a little bit of the yellow citron, which if you were using multi-surface, this would be our citrus green. Okay, so just a little bit of that blend it in. All right, I loaded it all with white, and then I came and got just a little bit of yellow citron and tapped it to blend it slightly. Okay, so now coming into where we have our leaves, then you're going to, with the white up and the citron edge down towards the leaves. The square white plate you can get at Dollar Tree. Okay, little clusters. Like that. And then let's come over here. Well, you guys are very welcome for the demo. I'm happy to share some ideas with you. I know we haven't even hit Halloween yet, but if you are, some of you, my friends, do craft shows, you're thinking about, you thought about Halloween back in July, and you're thinking about Christmas now, and what you want to paint to sell for your craft shows. Okay, so we have a nice little set of clusters of berries, okay? And then I'm going to come in with my script liner and with some thicket on the tip, okay? And I'm going to touch that same sort of dot on the ends, slightly inside the edge. Okay, and we'll come over here and do the same. There we go. All right, and then I'm going to come right here and we'll give it my little signature. Now, before I come away from this, let me clean this off. And if you wanted to add some highlights to the red berries now, you could come in with a little bit of white on your script liner tip and just do a small little curve right here on the top. Just a little curve. And you're going to put that curve in the same place on every berry for where the light hits it. Now when you get to these little guys, right, just a little dot, and don't put them on all of them. Okay, so just a few highlights in there. You don't want to try to hit every single berry. There we go. Okay, so let's come back and just take a real quick look at this. Oh, how pretty did that turn out to be? There you go. So we've got juniper berries, we've got holly berries, we have mistletoe, winter berries, and rose hips. So what a pretty wreath that would make on canvas. And this will look really nice on your holiday table, or you could put it on a little table easel and just share it with people as they come into your home. Yes, you could put a bow on a wreath. Yep, that would be a great idea. So anyway, there you guys go.